Hey, I'm Ms. Bahak. Welcome to the Habit Chess podcast. On this show, I like to break down the best ideas on high agency thinking and skill acquisition. And in today's episode, I want to dive into the 7 soft skills that get harder and harder to learn every single year. And let's start with why this is important in the first place. And it's because most people focus on learning the hard skills, coding, math, marketing, finance. But what actually determines whether those skills actually translate into opportunities? They're soft skills, and they don't just stand alone. They act as force multipliers for every skill set that you develop. There's 3 types of skills that we develop over time. You've got primary skills, which is your main craft. You've got meta skills, things like the ability to learn, adapt, and decide faster. And then you have the supporting skills, which are the tools and knowledge to actually help execute the primary skill better. So soft skills actually determine whether these other skills actually help us or hold us back. As we get older, we get more set in our ways. And of course, some level of skepticism or stubbornness is probably healthy. It helps us filter noise, refine our taste, and avoid distractions. But if we're not careful, it can make us very rigid, stuck in our ways, and extremely slow to change. Looking back as somebody in my 30s right now, these are the soft skills that I wish I had mastered even earlier. And while it's never too late to actually work on them, the longer that we wait, the more painful the other projects and goals that we have in our life actually become. So here are the 7 soft skills that get harder to learn every year and why they matter. The first soft skill is emotional regulation, and this is the ability to stay calm under pressure. Without this skill, we can let fear, frustration, anxiety dictate and drive our decisions, which can obviously hurt our long-term outcomes. In the book, How to Do Things You Hate, Peter Hollins talks about this research where there's a chemical reaction that occurs after you have an emotion, and it typically lasts around 90 seconds. And if you feel that it is lasting longer than the 90 seconds, it is typically due to some sort of narrative around that feeling or that emotion. And I've just found that managing our inner state is probably the most important soft skill that we can learn that amplifies everything else, no matter what you want to get good at, personally or professionally. The speed at which progress can happen is often limited by how we handle these emotions. When working towards improving this skill, try to reframe stress as data rather than a personal attack. Something else I found very impactful from this exact book is being able to expand your vocabulary around labeling your emotions. Because if you don't, then you basically have very limited choice to describe how you are feeling, right? It can be mad, but is it frustrated? Is it angry? Is it annoyed, right? There's all these shades of maybe anger. Or is it sad, grief, feeling depressed, feeling anxious, feeling scared? So being able to determine whether you feel tired, dehydrated, or really sad will give you more colorful language to regulate through. Learning all the shades of these core emotions can give you specificity. And so just a quick reminder, the core emotions are sadness, anger, fear, happiness, disgust, and surprise. Now, the second soft skill is persuasion, which is the ability to get buy-in from others. No matter who we are, we sell things all day long. It may not be your personal product or service. It may very well be your ideas or your labor. At your job, you persuade your company in subtle ways to keep you around. Persuasion can have a negative connotation, but this is because you are thinking about it in the context of getting other people to do things that they don't want to do. I used to be terrified of selling back in my fitness coaching days until I was forced to get good at it. And what allowed me to get good at it was actually practicing outside of these sales situations. So it wasn't just about asking for the money or, presenting my offer and things like that. I got really good at when I was excited about something, whether it was a new comedian I discovered, a new YouTube video I saw, a new song I was excited about. I practiced myself telling someone else about it, telling multiple people about it, and seeing, could I get them just as excited as I was about this thing? Could I communicate what I was thinking in such a way where I had buy-in from them to play that song, to check out that video, or whatever it might be? So I would practice persuasion through these ideas that I was excited about. And when people actually shared in my excitement, and when they would spend their time on the ideas that I shared, that's how I knew I was onto something, because they're spending something that's more than money, right? It's a non-renewable resource, which is their time. And of course, it eventually did rub off in a sales context over the next few months and years. Now, the third soft skill is adaptability. Now, I look at this as the ability to be able to learn and pivot fast, because the world moves fast, right? What worked yesterday might not work tomorrow, or might not work 10 years from now. When we look at the people who thrive, they aren't always the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who are comfortable enough to adapt when they took on risk, right? And when things changed, when things didn't go as they planned, they didn't spend too much time lingering on, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? They very, very quickly were able to adapt to the new rules of the game, to the new field of play. One of the best ways to practice adaptability is to expose yourself to different environments. So if you typically work from one room, move yourself into another room. That's a small way of doing it. It could be having a conversation with somebody you wouldn't normally talk to. It could be learning a skill that's totally outside of your industry. I did stand-up comedy for 4 years, and it had massive carryover into other things that were totally outside of stand-up. I was in bars and venues and in front of audiences that I was not comfortable in front of, right? And I had to adapt moment to moment, night to night. And those skills do pay off in different contexts. This is why if you are someone who's like an executive and you also run, triathlons, it's like there is adaptability that is continually being trained when you do things like this. You just might not be noticing it in the moment. If you can get good at shifting gears, you're never going to be waiting for the perfect moment to pivot. And that's because you're already going to be in motion. The fourth soft skill is relationship building. And this I look at as the ability to connect with the right people. Opportunities don't just come from LinkedIn or cold applications. They come from people. When I first started my business, Pod Mahal, one of my first 10 clients was the company that I had actually interned for. And that wasn't luck. It was the result of relationships that I had built years before I had needed them. But here's the truth. I've struggled with this skill more than any other. In my 20s, I met amazing people, circles, networks, and mentors that I never thought I would get access to. But what I wish I had done better was staying in touch. Mel Robbins said something recently that hit me hard. She was talking on her podcast about how, when we're in high school and college, you are forced into networks and friend groups because these are the folks that you grew up with. These are the folks that you're just around. But as we get older, you are in different work environments, right? You might move from where you had originally grown up. The job of friendship is something that falls on you. And it's something that is no longer an automatic advantage that comes with, oh, I go to this school, therefore, there's hundreds of people who are my age and into the same things. And it's easy for me to, even if it seems hard at the time or felt hard at the time, it's easier for me to develop those relationships. But as you get older, you get further away from some of these organized friendships to some extent. And as your goals evolve, as your life circumstances evolve, we have to basically become more intentional about who we have around. And the reality of this is that relationship building doesn't feel or appear as naturally as it once did. That's why we have to use the tools that are available to us. In 2016, this is partly why I started my first podcast, the Airborne Mind Show. It's because the folks that I was around, I didn't feel like they quite got me 100%. And so I wanted to level up. I wanted to talk to world-class coaches and athletes and people that I was reading about in the books. And so I literally just asked, truly from just having those conversations week to week and knowing that I was connecting with people who were kind of on the same wavelength as me, that 1 hour conversation would have me floating in the clouds for the next week, where I was just, the dopamine that I got from it, the connection that I got from it fueled so many other ideas and things in my life and made a lot of harder things at the time feel very, very manageable. And so that is an effect of using modern technology and using social media to some extent to make this easier, right? So it's crazy because in 2016, I started with, one network, not really anything crazy. And within a year, I had landed my dream job in the Bay Area, working with Fortune 1000 executives and professional athletes. So completely new network. So it doesn't take very long. It doesn't need to be 10 years of doing this before you see something happen. You can connect with people that you want to talk to next week if you really wanted to. Podcasting was an excuse to have a conversation, and it still is. If you get this skill right, you never really feel like you have to network again. It just becomes a natural part of what you do. You develop relationships with people who are invested in your success the same way that you are invested in theirs. So the best time to strengthen your relationships was yesterday, but the next best time is today. The fifth soft skill is decision making. And I look at this as the ability to take smart risks. Most of us can stay stuck because we fear making the wrong decision. But indecision is often the bigger risk. Every major opportunity that I've had, whether it's in business, podcasting, or coaching, it all came down to one thing. I made a call and I backed it up. I used to overanalyze every move, thinking I needed more certainty, more validation, more information before taking the next step. But here's the thing, decision making isn't that valuable when things are certain. Anyone can decide when all the information is laid out perfectly, but that is rarely when you need this skill the most. So the people that thrive under uncertainty aren't the people with perfect information. They're the ones who have trained themselves to decide in the fog. One of the best mental models that I've used to improve my decision making is the 70% rule popularized by Jeff Bezos. If you have 70% of the information you think you need, make the call. If you feel like it's less than 70%, it might still be too early. You might be guessing. But if it's more than 70%, you're waiting too long, and now speed is the thing that becomes your risk. This is a framework that's been used for a long time in business, leadership, and military strategy, and all sorts of different worlds. Another concept that changed the game for me was the idea of irreversible and reversible decisions. This is something I picked up from Jeff Bezos that he outlined in Amazon's 2015 shareholder letter. He explained how some decisions are like one-way doors, the type 1 decisions. Once you go through that door, you can't come back, right? And these are the decisions that take some deep thought and really some time to think through because you can't go back. But most decisions are reversible. They're type 2 decisions. They're two-way doors. You can always experiment, refine, and tweak or pivot later. Most people treat every decision like it's irreversible, which leads to overthinking, analysis paralysis, and missed opportunities. The fastest way that I've found to build this skill is to make more decisions under uncertainty. This is where if you play a sport like tennis or you love chess, these are small ways where you can train these skills that we want to transfer into other environments. Remember, you don't get better at decision making by waiting for more clarity. You get better at decision making by actually deciding when there is a lack of clarity. You get better by acting in the moments where clarity is missing. I think I took plenty of risks in my 20s. If I could go back and tell myself, I would say take more reversible risks and take them faster. Because the people who move the fastest aren't always the best. They're just the ones that are willing to take the risk and adjust along the way. The sixth soft skill is focus, which I look at as the ability to tune out the noise. We live in a world designed to steal your attention, second by second, minute by minute, until it adds up to something like 22 hours a week, which by the way is the average amount of time that people spend consuming stuff on YouTube or on something like TikTok. Whether it's social media, emails, notifications, every app, every platform, every company is fighting for a piece of your focus. And most of us let it happen. So the problem is that focus isn't about just getting more done. It's about the ability to go deep on something long enough where you can actually build something meaningful. But of course, focus comes in different shapes and forms. It's not always about locking yourself in a cabin until you emerge with a finished product. Sometimes it's about the small stuff, right? So think about your phone notifications. Every time we look at a notification, it takes us out of the context, right? We switch contexts for a moment, and that switch alone is something that takes minutes to basically get back and regain your focus on what you were doing. But focus isn't just about distractions, it's also about what you choose to prioritize. A few years into my business, I hit a plateau. I was struggling between prioritizing between multiple customer segments. Which one is going to be the most profitable? Who loves working with me the most? And, where should I double down? Because this was something that, each of these customer segments were actually doing well. And so it was harder to decide where do I want to double down on because of course I love them all. And of course I knew that if I had the courage to just focus, that I would grow 10 times faster. And I was right. But that decision cost me months and months of focus with the lack of decision. So I had all the skills, I had all the tools, I had all the experience, I had all the failures. But because my focus was diluted, my growth was getting stalled. That's the hidden cost of a lack of focus. It's not just about losing focus or being distracted in the moment. It's about the long-term opportunity cost of not committing fully to the right thing. That's why it's so hard to get in the zone to do some deep work, because if you're constantly bouncing around between shallower tasks, it's very hard to actually get yourself to get in the zone. So if I could go back, I would tell myself, protect your focus like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. Because remember, in a world where everyone is increasingly scattered, the ability to go deep is something that becomes increasingly rare every day that goes by. Now, the seventh soft skill is self-discipline. And I look at this as the ability to follow through. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they quit too early. It was on the first try. It was on the 10th try. It was on the 20th try, right? I used to think self-discipline was about just pushing harder. That's the image that we have in mind, right? Making ourselves do things we don't want to do. But over time, I realized discipline isn't just about grinding. It's not just about willpower alone. It's about making that follow through inevitable. The stuff that really makes moves in our lives, no one is telling you or forcing you to do it. Your job has deadlines, your boss has expectations, our school had grades and due dates. But the things that matter most, the things that actually change your life, are the ones that you have to hold yourself accountable for. For me, that was building Pod Mahal. I was working full time. No one was checking on me on nights and weekends to see if I was refining my systems, landing new clients, or making sales collateral. It was on me. Pod Mahal wasn't built on motivation. It was built on nights and weekends and on consistency when no one was watching. That's why I say discipline isn't just about grinding. It's about making that follow through easier. One of the best decisions I've made in my productivity is removing the need to make the same decisions over and over again. And it's with little things, honestly, even like the clothes I wear. I wear a lot of black, right? I have a lot of black t-shirts, and it's mainly so I don't have to think about it, and I don't have to even spend an extra couple seconds wasting my time on that decision. And then there are other decisions that are very important that to me, I follow like a system or a checklist. The same way that a surgeon, when they go to do surgery, no matter what context they are coming from, they have something to go to, something that is an A that goes to a B and that leads them to Z. And so when I was in the fitness coaching business, I realized that the best and most compliant clients of mine weren't the ones who just had all of this free time. They were the ones who actually made it a point to create systems to be able to follow through on those habits. Because here's the truth, no matter how cool you think it is right now, you're not always going to feel like doing the thing. Motivation is inconsistent and discipline is a system. That's why the people who succeed in anything don't rely on emotions to dictate their actions. If that was true, we would never see any Olympic athletes, because who thinks about this one sporting event 4 years out, right? Well, the people who are doing this have begun thinking about it since they were 7 years old, right? Maybe 16, 20 years before they've actually gone to the Olympics. And so think about how something so far away, something that, can feel pointless in the grand scheme of life, because these athletes are going through life as well. They're experiencing ups and downs, new things, changing, all of that different stuff, just like me and you are, but they have to be able to tap into something that allows them to keep going, that allows them to show up even when it feels kind of pointless. I find this to be even more important in places where the incentive isn't that crazy. So something like stand-up. When I did stand-up, it's like you're not getting paid a ton when you land a paid show, right? Like you might make $25 and get free drinks and, some fries, but that $25 is very rewarding to you because you know how hard it is, you know how much it took to get there. It's not like being a part of the Eagles, a Super Bowl winning team, and I'm getting paid millions of dollars and there's, something on the line here that is incentivizing me. When you have things that are internal, right, and not just external things incentivizing you, those are the real sources that allow you to keep going when 90% of the field would have stopped. If you don't know where to start, try setting up a daily dashboard doc. This is something I've done and I've been loving it. It's kind of like notes and reminders and systems that I've already decided and that I want to be able to check on and review at a glance. The same way I might check the newspaper and go through and scroll, I want to scroll through this every morning. So it is like a soundtrack that I set for myself before the rest of the world, gives me their headphones, and now there's automatic soundtracks playing. I have mine in Notion, and I aim to skim this every morning before things get going, and also to come back to this document when I'm feeling a bit scattered. Every morning before the world's noise starts creeping in, give your brain the right soundtrack, or else you're just going to end up with everyone else's elevator music. A couple things you can include are writing down your key priorities, reminding yourself of what actually matters, and whatever you need to recalibrate before the outside voices start deciding your day. It's a simple system, but the compounding effect of starting each day with clarity is pretty massive. The secret to self-discipline, I found, isn't just about forcing yourself through pain. It's about making it the default path. So where do you start? Because soft skills aren't flashy. They don't come with certifications or awards or easy validation, but they do shape every major opportunity, project, or decision you'll make. The hardest part is that you just don't get rewarded for working on them immediately. There's no instant feedback loop, there's no applause. But over time, the person who can stay calm under pressure, sell an idea, adapt to change, build real relationships, make smart decisions, follow through, and focus deeply will win. And the best part is you don't have to master all of these at once. Just pick one, start small, and make it a habit. Because the sooner you build these skills, the easier everything else in life becomes. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to sign up for my Habit Chest newsletter, which you can get in the description below or at mshq.com. I appreciate you taking the time and hanging out today, and I will see you on the next one.